Okay, so here we go. So we're going to talk about prevalence of sleep complaints and obstructive sleep apnea in particular. And I really focus on obstructive sleep apnea because that's the one that has a lot of implications for things that can be impacted on an internal medicine basis, right? As opposed to when people talk about just sleep in general, obstructive sleep apnea is the one that has a lot more medical ramifications to it, right? So let's run through some of the stuff you've seen before about my disclaimers and all that, because every time I give a talk, I have to do this, but I'll do it real quick because I think you're used to some of these by now. So that's my usual disclaimer. I did not say what you thought I said. And at the bottom knows this one, he who laughs last thinks slowest. And so that's hopefully not me. Remember the books we've talked about. Again, just for conflict of interest, I have to do that by the state bar and also by whenever I speak to medical organizations. So those are the books, you've seen them before. And then conflicts of interest, again, continue that. If at first you don't succeed, skydiving is not for you. And also my boys, this is 3 of my boys hanging out, and we're going to talk about sleep. Okay, so please wake up for this one. Everybody's sleeping. I need your attention. This ought to wake you up. This is from a colleague of mine who's walking down the street in his hometown. Look what he sees when the wind is blowing. That'll wake you up to know that's coming right at you. And I want to give thanks to some of the people I did some of the research with. And let's go over a little bit about obstructive sleep apnea, about the study. We'll do some general sleep concepts, and I'll just give you a lot of little bullet points of stuff from the medical literature. Hopefully it'll help for you. Okay, obstructive sleep apnea, also called sleep disordered breathing, is very common, and there is a definition for this, right? Which means that you have to have at least 5 periods of time per hour while you're sleeping where the air's not getting through, right? All of us will have people say, oh, I heard you snore last night. Or someone says, oh, it looked like you were gasping last night. All those may be true symptoms, but it may not be obstructive sleep apnea. And so there's ways of looking at that because it makes a difference on whether or not somebody's going to have trouble, right? So there's these terms called the AHI, right? I'm going to try to define those for you. Or the amount of oxygenation that can be used to define what is obstructive sleep apnea. How much do you have to be impacted, right? So it's a shorthand here for you. Look. You can have an apnea-hypopnea index of 5 to 14. Moderate is 15, 29. Severe, greater than 30 of these episodes in an hour, right? So look at this terminology. Look. You don't have to remember all this. I just want you to understand this is some of the ways that we describe obstructive sleep apnea. So apnea, where you don't breathe for greater than or equal to 10 seconds. Okay, that's what it is. Hypopnea is where you have a little bit of breathing, right? Not full cessation, but you also notice that the oxygen in the blood is dropping, right? Another indication, the air's not quite getting through, right? And then there's the AHI, which we already talked about. There's another one that's called REI, the ODI. I don't want to remember these specific details. I want you to remember that it has to do with how many of these episodes are you having? Is it true apnea where the air doesn't move for 10 seconds? Is it hypopnea where it moves, but weakly so? And how many per hour are you having of those things? That's how you define it. It's a numbers game.